Have you ever saved someone's life? How did it happen?
One day in college, I was on my way to grab dinner with some friends and ran into another friend in the parking lot. I invited him to come with me and join us, and we proceeded to have a totally unremarkable dinner in the cafe. Years later, post-graduate on, we were hanging out one night getting a bit drunk and stoned, and he confessed to me that he was on his way to kill himself that night when I ran into him. My oh my. Good for him that you crossed his path. We just never know how we can make an impact in someone else's life. Well, I'm glad you ran into him. I worked in a med lab. My job was to go over the doctor's orders and make sure everything was correct. They missed a potassium test, so I ran and got that order. Turned out to be lethally high. Tech called the doctor at 2 in the morning. Doc got the patient to the hospital. Well played. Yes indeed. Without doctor world would not be the same. I almost died 2 years ago when had back pain, stomach. I'm still recovering, but I'm poor. But all is almost back to normal. Can you please give me Reddit gold? I cannot afford gold, and I want to block the ads when on phone app. Thanks. I hope Bob can continue to recover people in hospital like me. I had a good friend who was going through some very stressful times in his life. He began experiencing symptoms of severe anxiety, tension, headaches, feelings of dizziness, and lethargy. He went to the doctors, who prescribed him benzos. He wasn't doing good, and I went over several times to his house and he seemed like he was losing it. I would call him periodically to check in from time to time to see how he was doing and try to calm him. One day I had felt like I had a need to call him right then and there. I called him and he answered crying. I asked how he was doing and he said not good. I went and picked him up, noticed an empty fifth of whiskey on his dresser. He had always been a heavy drinker, and at that moment I realized that benzos and alcohol don't mix. I took him to the and he was admitted. He has a BAC of 0.36, indicating he was an alcoholic or he would be dead. From there we convinced him to take his SSRIs and go to rehab. On my way to drop him off at rehab he told me, "Hey man, you're a great friend. I just want you to know that if you hadn't showed up today, I was going to kill myself." That hit me hard. Wow, just wow. I talk to suicidal people on Omegle all the time and I try really hard to talk them out of it. Well, if sometime that worked, guess I saved a life. I'm sure you didn't. This is certainly written in stone in your life feed. Suicidal people that meet you must be very lucky indeed. This needs to get to hot or boiling so I can save a life and have permission to make an awesome comment here where I saved a bunch of redditors from boiling web water. Yes, well, not single-handedly, but with the help of my mother and my older brother. We found him hanging from the rafters, cut him down, performed chest compressions for 30 minutes until the paramedics arrived. I'm sure you didn't. This is certainly written in stone in your life feed. Friend overdosed on heroin. I administered CPR before the paramedics arrived. They did not have to administer Narcan when they arrived as she was breathing when they arrived. I'm a doctor. Even then I can count the number of times I can say I've saved someone's life on one hand with fingers left over. I was working at an athletics event. After a long distance running event that was open entry, a person collapsed and stopped breathing. I worked with my team to stabilize them and transfer them to hospital. They needed support for their airway to keep breathing. Had they not had it, they would have asphyxiated and died. I met them with their spouse and 8-year child a few months later, actually on this day a few years ago. That was the biggest reward for me. The best feeling. I'd reply that doctors save lives every day with their diagnosis and the healing, before ailments escalates to something more serious. A few friends and I saved a tourist family from drowning while surfing on the island of Oahu. We had been surfing an outer reef on the south shore that was a good half-mile or so off the coast when we noticed a family paddling out on a kayak. A single-person kayak with a dad, younger daughter maybe 8 and a son maybe 12 on the nose and tail, and with an older teenage son paddling behind on a boogie board. They paddled directly into an area of the reef where 45-foot waves were crashing very fast and very powerfully onto pretty much dry reef. It took only seconds for us to see them go from paddling along in the kayak to seeing them all bobbing in the waves in the kayak 200 yards away, stuck on the reef. We quickly paddled across the channel as fast as we could. We then each gave one of the kids and the dad outboards and pulled them by our leashes far enough into the lagoon and they could walk. About 100 yards or so. I vividly remember the dad saying, "I'm not panicking. I'm not panicking," over and over in a thick Russian accent, and having to reassure him that he'd be okay, but needs to focus on what we were doing. Just goes to show how dangerous the ocean is, and how deadly it could been for that family if we weren't there. Was in the middle of a neighborhood pool and watched a toddler at the side of the pool 10 foot and take his floats off and then jump in the water. He curled up like a ball and began to sink quickly. I was able to reach him before he reached the bottom. He was scared but screaming. The babysitter was on her phone. OMG, that is my nightmare. Thank you on behalf of his parents. I don't know if this really fits. I needed a kidney. My cousin volunteered. During their testing of her they found a small mass they thought was just fat. It turned out to be cancer. Most kidney cancer apparently is not caught until it's too late, because your other kidney takes on the work and you don't get symptoms. She was able to get it all removed and is now cancer free, didn't even need chemo, just surgery. Anyway, she claims I saved her life. I claim she saved her own by being willing to donate. I love your story. I told my father he has to go see a doctor or I would force him. He was super tired all the time. Turns out he had cancer and his liver was about to fail. We get a call for an attempted suicide. Dude slit his wrist bad. When we got to him, he was ghost white like a sheet of paper white. Put pressure on the wound, kept him conscious until medics arrived. He survived. Thanked us once he recovered. Was eating dinner with my kid. I think she was maybe 4 at the time. She started choking. I quickly shot my hand into her abdomen up, and in mimicking a hemorrhage, whatever it was she was eating came flying out of her mouth. Once she was good, the stress got me, and I went and cried in the bathroom for a couple minutes. Whoa, that's scary. Single-handedly? Twice. Once on baby with RSV. The pulse ox kept going off. My coworker just went in and shut it off. It went off again. I actually looked at baby in mom's arms and he had that whole "I'm not breathing" look. Snatched him out of mom's arms and started mouth to mouth on the crib until the code team could get there. No ambu bag because that hospital had decided it was too expensive to put one of each size at the bedside. My gift RSV a week later. Second time was a guy who was in the bathroom at Walmart. I just kept his airway open and best on his chest when he would quit breathing. Quite a few others as part of a team. Especially. I have performed the abdominal thrust wrongly called Heimlich on a girl at a juvenile detention facility I used to work at. I also have performed it on my wife probably 57 times. She has medical issues that sometimes causes her to choke, so we have learned how to specifically cook several meals and identify which ones that she refuses to eat when I'm not home with her. My dad and I were on vacation in Paris a couple years ago, walking by the river. There weren't that many people around, jet lag. We were up early, and this girl jogged by us with her dog off leash. A couple of ducks saw the dog coming about 30 feet ahead of us, and went into the water. Dog goes in after ducks. Girl goes in after dog. Because it was the Seine in the middle of Paris and the banks are all paved, and, apparently, steep, neither of them could get up on their own right. We pulled them both out, one after the other, and then this husky the size of a dire wolf had the nerve to shake off all over us. Probably they would have figured it out if we hadn't been there, or someone else would have heard the yelling in time to help them. Still, it's a fun story. Leash your dogs, kids. Not sure if the old lady would wound up dead, but I did do the Heimlich maneuver on someone whose face was turning green.